G'day, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another crazy dose of EV and net zero insanity in MGUY EV news for Sunday the 9th of March 2025. Be sure to follow me on all the usual socials for more content, links in the description, and please make sure you're subscribed and have enabled all notifications so you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you'd like to support this channel, why not buy me a coffee? Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. So we all know that the costs of net zero have never been properly calculated. This is an ideological crusade, and so they're doing everything they can to ensure that the figures are well and truly fudged to make it look like green energy, solar panels and wind farms are cheaper than baseload reliable nuclear and fossil fuel generated electricity. This is all complete nonsense. We all know this, but it's taken this chap Gordon Hughes, I'll leave links in the description to his Substack, I think, who has written an article in the Telegraph which is getting a hell of a lot of traction because it exposes just how scandalously expensive renewable electricity is going to be compared to previous generations of nuclear and fossil fuels. The true cost of green energy and net zero, it's essentially a gas grid plus a much bigger green energy one. Yes, not cheap. Yes, that's right, because you can't have an entirely renewable grid because it's intermittent, unpredictable and unreliable. So that means you have to have gas on standby the whole time to plug the gaps at short notice. And that's what makes it expensive, by the way. It has only been a few months since the publication of Clean Power 2030, the government's detailed map of the UK's voyage to net zero. It is highly unlikely that the plan can become reality on the timescale envisaged, as the UK simply does not have access to the capital and engineers required to build the necessary generation plants and grid connections so quickly. But that almost doesn't matter. Beside the most important fact about the plan, it will be extremely expensive. You won't hear that from Ed Miliband, who still insistently repeats the mantra that decarbonisation of the grid will protect us against price spikes caused by volatile gas markets. But he cannot know this because his department has resolutely refused to produce a credible estimate of what the planned net zero electricity system will cost. Indeed, one of his first acts as Secretary of State was to cancel the system costing, belatedly commissioned by his predecessor, Claire Coutinho. In the absence of any official estimate, I have recently calculated and published my own system costing of the net zero grid, and I can therefore tell readers with some certainty that Clean Power 2030 is an astonishingly poor deal. On average, my calculations show that the net zero grid would be a remarkable £15 billion per year more expensive than our current one, even allowing for the possibility of our being hit every 10 years by the rare combination of events that led to the 2022 energy price crisis, namely the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline and the simultaneous outage of large parts of the French nuclear fleet. Put another way, net zero will only look affordable if there's a crisis. In normal times, it will cost us dear. And here's a chart here of how the UK's electricity has gone up to 33 pence per kilowatt hour, while the US has remained relatively flat by comparison. But of course, this graph here is electricity getting cheaper, according to Ed Miliband. It's all insane. Go and read the whole thing. Link in the description. Also, the author has his own article on his own Substack, I think it is. Go and check that out as well. I'll put the link to that in the description as well. A very interesting read. And this is more like, the true cost of net zero, not the kind of fake cost that governments insist on pretending. This is a really interesting story. I'm a huge fan of this story. It's amazing it's taken this long because most people I speak to, and probably most people who drive a car, are sick to death of touchscreens, having to go into 16 menus to turn the heat seater on. Sorry, the seat heater on. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. You just want a switch or a button or something to turn the heated seats on, the seat, whatever they're called. And so VW, in a great move, is promising to go back to buttons. It's not a phone, it's a car. VW boss promises buttons are back for good. VW says the feedback is received from customers is real, and it promises to never ever make this mistake again. Somebody should tell BMW. Driving enthusiasts rejoice. Volkswagen will ditch its screen-happy control interfaces in favour of old-fashioned physical controls, beginning with its next generation of electric cars. Well, yeah, hopefully they'll make them into the gas cars as well. Company design chief Andreas Mint told Autocar. Well, why? Well, as popular and versatile as touchscreen interfaces are, they ignore one important fact. It's not an iPhone. We will never ever make this mistake anymore. On the steering wheel, we will have physical buttons. No guessing anymore. There's feedback, it's real, and people love this, Mint told the publication. Honestly, it's a car. It's not a phone. It's a car. Yes, we've been saying this for ages, and nobody's been listening. I really couldn't have put it better myself. And while VW's touchscreens won't be going anywhere, they will be joined by tactile controls for the audio volume heating and cooling and the hazard light, said Mint. They will be in every car that we make from now on. We understood this, he added, citing both critical and customer feedback. Cars will need to leave real estate for screens to accommodate nav systems and mandatory reverse cameras, but no longer at the expense of having dedicated knobs and buttons for these critical functions. Hallelujah. Mind you, this is not the first time we've heard this. VW CEO Thomas Schäfer promised the same thing in late 2023, after the company was taken to task for its excessive dependence on touch and haptic feedback-based control systems, particularly for the temperature controls in its newer vehicles. Schäfer himself even complained about the difficulty of finding certain infotainment features, acknowledging that their first solution could be awful for the customer experience. But this time, rather than vague promises, we know exactly when the cutoff should be. The launch of VW's ID2All, the program name apparently being used internally by VW employees to refer to the battery-powered Volkswagen Golf. Well, let's all hope that when they ditch their electric plans, which I'm sure they will very soon, they'll end up in the petrol-powered Golf and the petrol-powered and diesel-powered other versions of their cars as well. This is great news. Now, this story has been doing the rounds in the media this week about how the UK is apparently going to back down on its EV mandate. I'm not so sure. I'm actually not so sure whether this is really going to happen. I think it's all, platitudes and fine talking, but I don't actually think there's going to be a huge difference here because, well, you'll see why in a minute. UK ready to relax emission mandate after Nissan warning. Car maker said zero-emission vehicle targets put manufacturing at its Sunderland plant at risk, which it does. The government is discussing relaxing mandatory quotas for electric cars after Nissan warned that excessively high targets and punitive fines were a risk to the Japanese company's manufacturing in Sunderland, Britain's biggest automotive plant. Jonathan Reynolds, the business secretary, told The Times after a meeting with Nissan that a substantial change of policy had been agreed and added, "We will do everything that we can to make sure Nissan has that secure long-term future in the UK, making sure the business and regulatory environment reflects that." Reynolds said, and this is the key point which leads me to believe nothing's going to change, Reynolds said that the policy change had the support of Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, who has pushed for ambitious regulation to reduce carbon emissions. It will be seen as another defeat for Miliband, however, after indications that the government could support a third runway at Heathrow. Well, all I can say is I will believe that when I see it, because Ed Miliband is a crazy zealot who ain't going to give up this EV transition that easily, or push it back, or do anything to water it down. So I can only assume that these changes that they're talking about are going to be very much on the edge. They're going to be very minor. They're going to be a concession to the complaints, but nothing is going to change. That is my view. We'll see if that is borne out. Another interesting one here about EV fires. As we all know, the chemicals in an EV battery produce some of the most toxic gases and waste products when they burn, hydrogen fluoride, hydrochloric acid gas, all sorts of other nasty stuff. And here's a health warning, effectively, raising the risk. Electric vehicle fires may raise cancer risk for communities. As electric vehicles, EVs, become more common on roads, they bring new health concerns for firefighters and the community, new research shows. Researchers at the University of Miami's Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center found that EV fires expose firefighters, vehicle owners, and community residents to dangerous heavy metals. Yes, I didn't even mention those. I mean, of course, that's another huge risk. While all fires pose exposure risks, EV fires elevate the risk to firefighters, owners, and the nearby community because they are powered by massive batteries containing high concentrations of heavy metals. Dr. Alberto Caban Martinez, Deputy Director of Sylvester's Firefighter Cancer Initiative, FCI, said in a news release, "Many of these metals are associated with increased cancer risk due to their potential to cause DNA damage, oxidative stress, and genetic alterations. Batteries used in EVs contain several metals that may cause cancer, such as arsenic, linked to lung, bladder, skin, liver, and kidney cancers, cadmium, chromium, nickel, lead, and all the others." The National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health notes that firefighters already have a 9% higher risk of developing cancer and a 14% higher risk of dying from cancer than the general population. And this assumes, of course, that you don't get, whacked by the clouds of hydrogen fluoride gas, which will get you straight away. If you survive that, then you're going to have all these longer term cancer risks from heavy metals. They are just bad news all round, EV batteries. They really are. So I did a piece earlier this week about how Tesla sales were plummeting, partly because the EV bubble has burst, but also because Elon Musk is not making himself entirely popular with a certain part of the community, which probably would be the ones buying EVs. And it's escalating quickly, as the famous phrase said. Oregon Tesla dealership shot at, damaged by gunfire, shattered glass. And before we go on, we'll just watch this little clip here of crowds booing Tesla Cybertrucks during Mardi Gras festivities in New Orleans. Here we go. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Oh, dear me. That's enough of that. You can watch the rest at the link. Police in Oregon are working with the FBI after gunshots were discovered at a Tesla dealership Thursday morning in the latest instance of vandalism against the carmaker. Investigators think at least 7 shots were fired at the building, resulting in hitting 3 cars total and a computer monitor, according to the Tigard Police Department, located just south of Portland. Photos of the damage show shattered glass at the front of the building, a wall with bullet holes, as well as a damaged Cybertruck and another vehicle with a broken windshield. Yes, you can see the panes of glass that have been smashed here by bullets. While the motivation for this has not been confirmed, I think we can guess, we are aware of other Tesla dealerships that have been targeting across Oregon and the nation for political reasons, Tigard police said. According to investigators, Tesla employees showed up to work on Thursday and found the gunshot damage. Fortunately, this happened overnight when the property was unoccupied. Well, I think they were just testing the bullet resistance of the Cybertruck, weren't they? I mean, reasonable test before you buy one. And finally, I won't go through all of this because it's long, but you should check out some of this because it's just astonishing the amount of depreciation that these bloody EVs get in just 3 years. And here's an article, 10 electric cars that depreciate the most after 3 years of ownership. Electric vehicles face the worst depreciation rates. Used EVs like the Porsche Taycan and Mustang Mach-E offer substantial savings after 3 years. Well, that's true because they depreciate so much, not running costs necessarily. Japanese cars are cost-effective and reliable alternatives for budget-conscious buyers. The automotive landscape has changed a lot over the last decade, from the surge in demand for SUVs to the rise of electric vehicles. One thing that's certain is depreciation. Electric cars are mainstream now, but they're still the worst depreciating vehicles. Yes, they are, by a long way. Thankfully, they level out in year 3. Really? Making these EVs a bargain for used car buyers. I don't think they do, actually, but there we go. Even though these are much more affordable than their original MSRP, some are still expensive by used car standards. If you're on a budget, a cheap and reliable Japan-made car could save you a lot of money in repair bills. So, number 10, Volkswagen ID.4, depreciation 53.6% in 3 years. Oh my God. And they only get worse from there. Guesses in the comments as to what number 1 is, and then we'll reveal it. Go on, write it down in the comments what your guess is. And yes, it's the Audi e-tron. Depreciation 65.8% in 3 years. It's the less desirable version of the Taycan. So no wonder it's depreciating like a plummeting hippopotamus. All right, that's it for this one. Thanks very much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one. Bye for now.